My father has a hidden camera with over 150 images of myself and my kids. My father has a hidden camera with over 150 images of myself and my kids. In my final year of high school I met this guy who just left his old school to come to mine. For some reason we clicked and became really good friends. What I admired about him most was how extremely kind and sweet he was. He didn't seem to have a single bad bone in his body. One day while we were on the train he randomly brought up that he's always wanted to try acid and wanted to do it with a friend, so I agreed. I had never tried it beforehand or anything similar. He said we should do it at his house and that his parents weren't going to be home. When I arrived there we went to his room and we took the 2 tabs. I arrived quite early as acid can last up to 12 to 15 hours. It was fun at first. We watched Rick and Morty, laughed at the walls moving and closing in. Probably was just staring at each other for hours without realizing. It was a cool experience. And in a blink the sun already went down and it was pitch black outside. The whole time I could barely move. I laid down for most of the trip and my limbs were basically paralyzed. Most I could do was barely sit up, let alone walk. We were on his bed the whole time and at this point it was around 9 p.m. We were listening to music and I caught him just staring at me, and then he suddenly leaned in and started making out with me. This wasn't bad as I thought it was harmless and funny until he roughly tore my clothes off and started having sex with me. He was on top of me and one point started choking me, pushing his whole body weight on me. My body was slightly mobile but still extremely weak. I can't even remember what my mind was thinking because to be honest it didn't feel real. My body felt completely detached. I was so incredibly confused and scared. I had to tell him to get the FCK off me and I shoved him off. I left his house and was picked up. The following weeks he manipulated me into thinking I wanted it. And for a while I thought I did. I had a gut feeling it wasn't right, but I didn't want to be a victim, so I made myself think it was okay. We continued sleeping together in secret until one of my classmates who was a friend at the time found out after she saw hickeys on both of our necks, and she told me that he had pet her at her house a couple weeks before I was at his house. I felt sick to my stomach because all the denial I had was true. All of my fears were confirmed and it felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. From the start thought he was such a nice guy. I felt betrayed, confused and violated. I confronted him about it and he denied it and then fled the school and never returned. Throughout the whole thing he stuck to his narrative that he didn't do anything and tried to contact me when my friend reported it and was going through the case with the police. I cut all contact from him and stuck by my friend's side. Unfortunately, due to lack of evidence, me and my friend have had a hard time. And I still am not ready to take this step. She reassured me and told me she was proud of me for even wanting to talk about it, and I promised her I'd do anything for her to help. She has decided to dismiss it as the evidence wasn't enough and she knew I was still trying to heal. It's a shitty situation for the both of us. What makes me unable to sleep at night is the fact that when I look back, he planned out the whole thing. He purposely made sure no one was there to help me, got me high and vulnerable, and when his body wasn't limp he made his move. He knew how it would all play out. And I always wonder why he left his old school. Did he do this to someone else? I was 18 at the time, 25 years old now. I had gotten in touch with an old school friend and we had been chatting for a few weeks. Let's call her Meg. She invited me to a house party she was having for her birthday, and I said sure, cause at the time I took any excuse to drink. I obviously didn't know anyone there, but I found a couple people in the garden I could chat to and it was an alright time. We were doing shots and I was drinking straight whiskey, so after a few hours I was incredibly drunk. A couple more drinks later and I said I'm gonna head home, and as I stood up I nearly fell over immediately from being drunk. Meg put my arm around her to support me and asked if I needed to sleep it off for a bit, and it sounded like a good idea cause I couldn't even stand. She helped me lumber upstairs and into a room where I laid on her bed. I remember seeing her leave and I fell asleep pretty quick. I woke up a little later cause I was being pushed and nudged around. I look around to see Meg has taken my shoes off and is unbuttoning my jeans. My first thought was that maybe I was passed out so long that it was nighttime now and she was just making me comfortable to crash there for the night. I opened my mouth to tell her not to bother, but it was just a slur of noise as I was still completely fucked. She climbed on top of me and started kissing my neck, saying that she wanted me or some shit. I tried pushing her away but my arms were so weak and I was kinda drifting in and out of consciousness. As you can imagine, she got my boxers down and rode me. I vividly remember asking her to stop and trying to push her off, but she kept going. I did come, but it was purely just a natural response. I was not enjoying it at all. At some point I passed out again. When I woke up I was still drunk and naked except for my shirt. I fiddled my clothes on as best I could and phoned a friend of mine to come pick me up. I stumbled down the stairs and Meg was trying to stop me, asking me to calm down. But I pushed past her, got outside and waited on the curb for my friend. I never went to the police or told anyone about it, cause at 18 I was afraid I would just be mocked or laughed at. Years later when I did tell people I really was mocked and laughed at. Cut to a few months later, I'm walking around my local town and I bump into one of the guys I was talking to at the house party and we chatted for a bit. I kind of coldly asked how Meg was doing, to which he said he had been doing really rough since she had an abortion a few weeks back. As you can imagine I went completely cold but tried to play it off. I asked what happened and if she'd had an abortion cause she didn't know who the father was. He said she knew who the father was cause she had only slept with one person a few months ago. I hurriedly ended this chat, went into the nearest pub, threw up violently in the toilets, and then drank through the night. Now, it's entirely possible that it wasn't me who had gotten her pregnant. She might have slept with several people around that time and just lied about it. But I've never stopped thinking about the possibility that someone nearly had my child all because they took advantage of me while drunk. I've never spoken to or reached out to Meg and continue to have her blocked on everything I could find her on. I was an orphan and from a young age I had issues with pedophilic carers. From age 11 to 17 I was constantly sexually abused by my foster parents. They would hide cameras in the bathroom while I showered and even after I found the cameras and took them and destroyed them they'd just hide new ones. They would come up with excuses saying I had to sleep in their bed with them because of problems like bedbugs. I'd ask to sleep on the couch and they'd get mad and say I had to do what I was told. When I reached the age to realize I was being abused I tried to tell the higher-ups in the institution that overlooked the foster carers. They told me you really shouldn't say that about people, it can ruin people. I never got help because no one believed me. When I was 18 I started to look after myself. I was out of the system and the abuse was over. At one point I tried telling my best friend about what I went through and he asked but was she hot? This was the last time I ever told anybody about what I went through. At that point I realized nobody cares about a male child being abused by pedophiles, our issues just don't matter enough. To this day I am cautious around women. I want to form a relationship and love somebody but my trauma associates potential partners with the women who assaulted me as a child. I have no one to talk to, it's a problem I have to deal with on my own. I sat with a detective identifying hidden camera pictures taken of myself and my girls. Easily over 150 pictures. I felt violated, angry, embarrassed, and raw grief that these pictures exist. I was told that these pictures were shared with other people. I was asked if I wanted to go through with pressing charges. I was told it would put a spotlight on my family and that it would be public. I sat dumbfounded and shocked. I felt as if I was being told to just let it go in the interest of my girls. The detective said if I went public, a lot of people would be uncomfortable as if that's my fault. I am not backing down and am going forward with this, which is why I had to leave to a shelter. Yes, it's uncomfortable and downright disgusting, but I'm not letting him get away with it. This man distributed pictures that were taken with a hidden camera within the safe walls of my home. At least I thought it was safe. When I confronted him he punched me in the face and knocked 3 teeth out in front of my kids. I've never heard someone cry so hard in my life. My son's face was beet red and I made the decision to leave right then. This man has managed to make me 100% dependent on him. The past week he found the shelter we were at and has been sitting in his car outside the shelter we were at to try and intimidate me. He threw a brick through the shelter's glass door. We were not safe anymore so we had to leave. The shelter put us in a motel 2 towns over and after that, I don't know. We can't go back to that shelter for the safety of everyone. Tonight we got checked in and for the first time since we left, we have a bed and each of us has a pillow. The shelter gave me a $20 Visa gift card for food and we walked to the gas station. I got my 3 kids a hot dog and my son started asking for candy. I know they are all exhausted and have been through a lot but I cannot waste money on candy. Before I could redirect him, my daughter told him no need candy, we get a bath. And I melted into a puddle of tears inside the Quick Trip. Having a bath was more exciting than candy. Even if it's only for a few days it's an indescribable feeling. For the first time in over 2 months I am back in control of our safety. No one has a key to our room. There are no hidden cameras. There is security if needed. I'm going to sleep like a baby. Well, that's all for the video today. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, have an amazing day.